All right, board members, thank you. We've got a quorum here, so we're going to get moving. And is Joel ready online, Superintendent Coleman?
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. And I'm going to turn time over to you unless you need help, Superintendent. You let us know how we can help you. Otherwise, you're off to the races here.
Okay, great. Could we just maybe have Superintendent Tanner or Superintendent Patton kind of run the meeting like I would normally, and I'm here in case I need to chime in?
I actually offered that to Superintendent Tanner, and she said you were going to do it. So
You can see here that all the topics and everything are in alignment with the same data governance plan that was given by the Board of Education. So, and we're seeking your approval so that we can move forward with that and put it in our policy manual.
Could I make a comment?
yeah, Vice Chair Hart.
I thought it was a very thorough data plan.
Go to the next tab. I'll pull that up here. You can pull that up here. You can see this. These are the topics that were approved. See this. These are the topics that were approved. All the approved items. These are the topics that were approved. All the approved items. They're using those items. All the approved items. They're using those items as they were approved, and we are in the process now. Amy Breinholt, who you met last month, is putting together.
You can see on this report.
Amy Breinholt, who you met last month, is putting together.
You can see on this report. You can see on this report is 35.2 million. We had more expenses of 35.5 million, leaving us in a deficit of 242,000. That is comprised of a few items. One is the Tooele School District billing of $300,000. And we are working with both Deputy Superintendent Scott Jones and Deborah Jacobson and getting that as soon as the governor signs the bill. And the $700,000 for the shortfall that was in Medicaid because the Department of Health and Human Services overestimated the percent of claims that they reimbursed us on. And they did that to every LEA in the state. So everyone is struggling with that. In addition to that, transportation, as we all know, is a very high price tag, and we'll be submitting another request for an additional transfer from your office. So in the interim, while the governor's signing the bill, we'll probably see that deficit continue to increase next month and maybe the month after, but hopefully we'll have the money back by then. But we still have cash on hand, which is good. The number of students that we have serving on campus is 389, so a large increase this year as was predicted. And those are accurate numbers, and we're still struggling, and we've got, 30 to 40 next year that we know of in coming through. So we're straining for our facilities to have space for them and the educators to teach them. The number of students receiving services, this is including the outreach, 2,350, and then the student services that are provided is almost 5,000, 4,857. So extreme growth in those last two categories as well. The three funds that we always report to you is the Land Grant Enrichment Fund. And I just want to bring to your attention, I made one mistake. In that column for January 31st, 2005, can you see the $912? That's in error. That amount should be 581,253. So our balance in the land grant enrichment fund as of the end of January 31st was roughly $957,000. So I will correct that when we do the February report. So I apologize for that. The donated fund is roughly $286,500, and our education foundation is $1.2 million. Now, this is the financial report. The next 2 pages is the budget status report that gives, this is, Board Member Booth just kind of asked a question before the meeting started. These numbers all come off the state accounting system, FINET, that we incorporate and tie into and reconcile to. And so these are all solid numbers incoming in. And that just shows the revenues in the green. And then the section down below is our operating expenses. Michelle, if you could tab down, there you go, in that pink and red. My wife always says my color of pink is off, but that's pink to me. Anyway, and then we have enrichment funds in terms of the revenues coming in from the Land Grant Trust Fund and all the expenses associated with enrichment that we're going to get to in just a minute. So with that, Madam Chair, before I get to the enrichment funds, are there any questions that anyone may have?
I see no lights, so you can proceed.
Okay, great. Enrichment funds, the progress report, the balance that was that you approved back in May last year, we have spent $676,083, leaving us a balance of $725,000 to be spent from now through the end of the year. So we're making good progress on that, and we have the trips coming up.
Someone online, can you hit mute? Is
So with that, Madam Chair, that is my financial report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but we appreciate all your support.
Member Davis?
Are all of the enrichment funds encumbered?
Well, they're designated. I wouldn't say encumbered. We've set them aside. As you may remember, the associates meet with their directors and the directors meet with their teachers, and they come up with a list of projects and activities they would like to have funded. And then we take that to the advisory council. The advisory council vets them, asks questions, and then once that they feel comfortable with them, they make the recommendation to you as a board, and you as a board vote to approve them. And so we need to spend the money according to your approval.
And maybe this is probably a conversation for the USDB committee, just trying to think through if there's any flexibility financially, because after PEA, I thought, okay, we got a bridge year. Now seems like the bridge year, the bridge collapsed.
We are having internal discussions, and we'll probably bring some of that up on Tuesday morning in terms of there's some positions that work directly with the kids in regards to these enrichment funds that we may be proposing to use the enrichment to kind of as a bridge loan, so to speak, to get us through next year while the committee is doing their work.
Follow-up? No? Okay. Any other board members have questions? No. Moving on.
Thank you.
I believe the next is the superintendent report, so we could
Yeah.
let Joel.
Maybe I can start first,
Please.
if that's okay. And then I'll turn it over. I'll talk about the stuff that's not that fun. And then we'll let Superintendent Tanner, Superintendent Patton talk about the fun stuff. So the superintendent report this month, board members, has to do with kind of what board member Davis just brought up. In the final EAC meeting on Friday last week, the EAC, the Executive Appropriations Committee, did support retaining the appropriated building funds and holding on to those during the study that happens this next year. They did not approve additional ongoing funding requests for next year for the personnel and so forth for increases. So we're just starting that budget formulation work, like Mr. Epi mentioned, and that commences now in earnest. This is our springtime planning program that we do every year, and it'll be a little more intense this year because we're really searching the couch cushions for change, even though we've been doing that for several years. So there will be more to follow after we meet next week with the USDB subcommittee on Tuesday. We'll have that meeting. And we're actually really looking forward to the interim planning efforts that will happen between now and November, when we have been asked to report, we meaning you as a board really, to report back to the legislature about the future of how we see USDB working out. And then just wanted to mention a major thank you to the board members who participated so much. I realize this session isn't actually over until midnight, but it's just been amazing. And I've heard that from a lot of people, secondhand and firsthand both, that they've been very impressed with the efforts that you've all made to advocate for all of your priorities, not just USDB, but including USDB. And so with that, I will turn it over to the two associate superintendents to report to you on the stuff that we really care about and the reason we're here, which is the activities and the programs where we work with the students and their families. So Superintendent Tanner, if you wouldn't mind going first, and then Superintendent Patton.
Okay, we got a lot going on in March. So the things we've been invited to participate, our students have been invited to participate in pickleball, a competition at in Washington, D.C. Gallaudet University is helping pay for that so that we can go over there and start getting that going. So obviously we have to start practicing. So that's a good thing. We're probably not going to perform the best, since I don't think that's been the sport they've been focusing on. We also have done very well at our STEM and drone, ROV, robotics competitions. So much so that we've been invited to the World Championship. Yep. So we're going to do that for our students. Our students are participating in that. Another thing that our students have been participating in for it's been going for 40 plus years. It's called the Academic Bowl. And our students participate with that. It's a lot like Jeopardy. And they don't have to ask it in the form of a question, but there are rounds, there are questions. It's very competitive. And they did so well at regionals that Gallaudet is paying for them to go to the national competition. That is happening in April. So they're getting ready for that. And tomorrow I get to be on the opposing team. I really hope it's not embarrassing, because that's going to happen. They ask some questions that are really tough. I'm just going to tell you. So I'm really impressed, because it's an academic achievement that they have done very well on, and we're very pleased with that. We also have some students that will be going to Boston to study and learn about the history and things that are going on in the history of American history back in the day, and that's happening about the same time that we have the trip that's going to Japan. And I think it's important we always emphasize that these funds do not come from operating funds. In fact, it's not taxpayer dollars. It comes from land that the USDB owns, that USDB is, we should say owns. We are responsible for the trust, and we are responsible to use it to enrich the lives of deaf and blind children across the state of Utah. And it actually has a caveat that we're not supposed to use it for operating funds. We are not allowed to. So we pick enriching activities. And for the deaf school, these enriching activities are critical for language development, because when you don't hear what's going on around you, you are at a deficit to understand what's happening around you. And so they often are limited in their experiences and don't get to go on trips. Or like even on a basketball team, they don't get to be fully participants in those things. So these funds help to make it so our students get the same equal access to the same activities that other schools offer for other activities. So it's a great opportunity. We're really looking forward to this month and to the April, and we're already heading into doing summer camps. And at this point, I've already had, and I'm going to have to limit it, believe it or not, I have 66 proposed summer camps right now. 66 of our staff members are wanting to put out a camp out there. And we had 41 last year. So it's overwhelming to manage. But the children benefit. The children do great. If we have summers where they don't have language, can you imagine not understanding for 6 months? Everything's being said around you. It's a big deal. So we do value the summer camp. So we're in the process of getting those ready as well.
Great, thanks, Michelle. So, yeah, but we're kind of doing some of the same things with, I'll let you know some of the enrichment activities that we have planned. First of all, tomorrow is the Braille Challenge, and that's put on by the Braille Institute, but USDB, we do support that, and so that's very exciting because kids come from all over the state, and they compete in Braille competitions, and that will be held at DSBVI if you get a chance. I know none of you have anything to do, but if you get a chance, you can stop by and see it. It's quite the experience. The other thing is we have our stateside adventure they're going to San Francisco, and the School for the Blind used to do study abroad programs, and then a few years ago we decided that completely different from the School for the Deaf because we have different needs, School for the Deaf versus School for the School for the Blind. But all of the study abroad programs that we were participating in, we really could do in the States. We could have more kids participate in it, and we could do it possibly, we haven't done this yet, but possibly a couple of times a year. The main purpose for that is access and teaching our students how to navigate through an airport when they're blind or low vision, navigating through different public transportation systems in large cities, what kinds of questions to ask. You know, in one of the experiences I was in, our teacher said, okay, we've now got, it was purposeful, we were in the wrong area. We did it wrong, purposefully. And she said to our students, who we had 5 of them that were completely blind, she said, what skills are you gonna need? What skills? And they were like, I don't know. And she's like, well, then you need to ask somebody. You got to find somebody to ask. And I, of course, was like, is this right? Let's see, it doesn't seem, but you should have seen how uncomfortable it was for the kids to go up and ask a total stranger, but yet they needed to have those skills. So that's the purpose of a study program, a study abroad. When I say study abroad, we're doing stateside adventures instead of study abroad. We're also, and that's open to students who are blind, visually impaired, or deafblind statewide. So they're not students that only USDB are serving either in our campus programs or in our outreach. It's statewide. We also want the teachers of the visually impaired who are serving those students to apply to go as well, because we pre-teach, it's very rigorous on what we're pre-teaching for them to be able to go on these trips. And if we can have a teacher of the visually impaired or their orientation mobility services teacher, which is cane travel and really traveling, if we can pre-teach that and reteach after the experience, it just makes it so much more effective for our students. We're also doing what's called Epic Road Trip. I had to get the epic right. The Epic Road Trip, and I don't know, it's epic in that we're going to Idaho. But oh well, our high school, it's going to be our high school trip, our Bridges High School trip, but then we're also opening it up statewide for students who might need some more supports than our students who only have, I shouldn't say only, but they have the blindness and low vision and possibly don't have any other needs. So we're taking quite a few, but this is going to the Idaho School for the Blind. So we're working in conjunction with the Idaho School for the Blind to for them to be able to associate with some peers and do some activities with them as well. And that's coming up in May. So you also got something from me as far as we send that out for the TVI memo, and the purpose of that is that our teachers of the visually impaired statewide know exactly what's going on with the activities for the School for the Blind, and they have been so great. Again, not only teachers that work for USDB, but for other districts in making sure that information is dispersed to the parents. One of the focuses that we have switched this year, which we will continue to kind of turn is that we're wanting to support families in involvement in with some of these enrichment funds. We have the opportunity this year to participate in the Four Corners Campabilities, and USDB puts on a Campabilities camp every year, and this year we will not be doing that in Ogden because we're going to be sponsoring some students to go to Flagstaff, Arizona, to participate in their Four Corners Campabilities. It's the same entity, Campabilities, will be running it. But with that, parents, their Campabilities, the parents have to take them. We just can't send a bus of kids down. Their parents have to take them. So the parents will be experiencing this with those students, and we've gotten some good feedback as far as parents wanting to be involved in it. The other thing that we're doing is with the enrichment funds, there's 2 line items. One of it was for students to apply, and the other one was for families to apply. And we've been able to, it actually went out just a couple of days ago, the TVI memo, and we're wanting more students and more families to apply because this is the LEA activity support. And students can apply for specific help in, for instance, we had one student that wanted to attend his band competition that was back east, but he's blind. He's blind and he needs some more supports. And so he was able to apply. The advisory council is the ones that approve this. We don't approve it as USDB administration, but it's to promote inclusion into their schools and to help them participate in their local schools. And the same thing for the family extracurricular activities for the blind. So if you have more questions about that, I'm happy to answer those. It's the first year we're doing this, so we're trying to kind of form it this year, but I think we're moving in the right direction with that. The other, just besides the enrichment activities or whatnot, we had 2 kind of audits last week. We had our UPIPS audit with our special education, and that went well. We don't know yet, but we have our first week our first meeting next week to go over some of the findings, and that will come out. And then we also had our accreditation from Cognia on Thursday. So we had UPIPS Tuesday, Cognia Thursday, and I think our teachers and our paraeducators and some of our staff were like, okay, now which is which? So we don't know. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Just do your thing. It's all good. Anyway, we got some good feedback. It was the Cognia accreditors, I was in Ogden, Michelle was in Salt Lake, and it was really enlightening and just actually wonderful. I was able to go to all of the deaf classrooms and the blind classrooms, and the accreditor that was with me, she kept saying, I can't believe what's going on here. I can't believe, that these kids are paying such attention to one teacher, just the communication with the deaf school, and then she was able to witness a Braille instruction with our blind students. And, it just always is validating to hear because it's not Michelle and I and Joel, it's the teachers and the students that they're amazed with. It's not what's happening here. It's actually the work that's being provided, and it was great for them to see that.
Yeah, we tried to prep them to tell them everybody who comes and sits in the classrooms and observes leaves with a life-changing experience, is usually how they responded. And she literally came at the end of the Cognia accreditation and was like, she's my heart. I don't even have words. She was so impressed and had such a great experience. Obviously, we've not read the report, but I couldn't speak enough positive things. It was a fantastic accreditation visit. And of course, UPIPS is intense, but we were ready for it. We're hoping for good things. We always know there's errors. There's always a finding here or there, but that's how you get better. If you don't have findings, you don't know what you need to improve, so we're cool with that too.
And then just the last thing I wanted to mention was that we're looking at, I had the blind directors, the directors that work for the blind school, we were looking at different creative ways that we're going to possibly need to make some changes based on the lack of funding that we're going to get. And I was so impressed with our directors and the creativity and the ideas that they brought up. I just wanted you to know that we're actively looking at ways to bridge the gaps there, because we know it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough, and I appreciated the attitude that they had, that it wasn't, because anyway, it's kind of like, oh, just, but they really were able to buoy me up in the fact that they had ideas, and I really appreciated that. So that's all I have.
Yes, so I don't know if you want to tackle this. I know I don't, but maybe Dr. Voorhees does or will. But I don't think people understand just how intense UPIPS is, or even what UPIPS is. And it's a rite of passage, and it's similar to hazing. I'm kidding, but only sort of. But to have UPIPS and Cognia at the same time, same week.
Same week.
Same week, 2
Tuesday
days
was
apart.
UPIPS, and then
the
Thursday.
next time that happens, call us. I'm
Well,
sure
you
there
know,
is
Cognia
someone.
actually were scheduled on the 13th of February, and then they
had to
said we
reschedule.
can't, so we're coming on the 27th, and we were like, we got to get this over with, so
Oh
that's fine,
my.
we'll do it.
So, UPIPS, how do you describe it in 2 sentences there, Dr. Voorhees?
Thank you, Chair. Leah Voorhees, Interim Deputy Superintendent. Demonstrating that an LEA is compliant with all the requirements in the Individuals with Disabilities Act and improving outcomes for students with disabilities.
And I love it.
Was that 2 sentences?
That was 1 sentence, I believe. It was a compound sentence. And I am impressed that, I mean, knowing UPIPS, which I meant that affectionately, we like the feedback. The feedback is very helpful. But it's intense. And for you all, with the student population that you're serving, it's doubly intense.
Yeah.
Every student has a unique set of circumstances.
If I
So
could, if I may, I could explain a little bit. We
Please.
had 19 reviewers come, and they went to 3 different campuses. And so some came in and were reviewing files with a very fine tooth comb, checking all the buttons and everything and making sure. But then they would take those files and go sit in the classrooms to see if we were implementing the IEPs for the children with fidelity. So, which is a great review. You get to learn a lot when you do that. And they interviewed all different staff members, teachers, paraprofessionals, related service providers, the directors, the special education, Susan and I. So it's a pretty intensive review, very thorough. And when you do these things, you're just like, it's like letting your mother-in-law come over to your house and check through the couch cushions and find stuff. Hopefully we have a nice mother-in-law.
this is sorry, Dr. Voorhees. But that is meant with the most affection possible. And then Cognia is our accreditation. That we go through in order to be accredited, so that our students can get national scholarships and can do national things. It's the stamp of authenticity, so to speak. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. If I may, the UPIPS team, they were delightful, and they talked to all of the educators that they were, because it's nerve-wracking for our staff, right? And we try to say, we're not worried about this, we just do our thing. We let them see what we do, but they were really great on conveying the meaning behind it, and also that they wanted to see the practical application for the students. And we really appreciated that. So there is that. They did an amazing job.
And the truth is, we wouldn't joke about it if it was something that we dreaded and hated and wasn't a meaningful experience. We just wouldn't speak about it. So that really, truly, that's a great accomplishment. Congratulations to your staff. And I hope that you get a little bit of a breather, quite frankly. Did that conclude your presentation? Superintendent, did that conclude your presentation?
Almost.
Okay,
If I
go
could
for it.
make one quick comment, then we'll be finished. I think, well, first of all, I was sitting here thinking, our meetings are better when the associate superintendents do all the talking anyway. But I hope the board noticed something, and what we've been through lately with policy, legislation, funding, all of those matters. I tend to own that. I take it home with me. That's what a superintendent does. But if you can just imagine the amount of work that the associates do, they help me with all of that. And they also help the people under them and support them in the ways that they just described. And they are literally incredible, not just as humans, but anyone in their position. It's awesome to watch. And so I just hope the board got to feel a little sense of that from our brief reports today. We're very fortunate to have the kind of leadership we do at USDB. So that's the end of my report. And thank you for just allowing me to participate remotely today.
Thank you. And now to Member Wood, Vice Chair Wood, please.
I'm just waiting for you to turn it on for me. So you all could see the summary of actions within our backup. I just had a couple of things just to confirm. We will start on Tuesday with our first public meeting. We had a couple of planning meetings where we talked about how is this going to work. Starting up a brand new committee is somewhat of a challenge, and we want to make sure that the public is engaged, that we can have time for public input, but we also know that sometimes we have to do the deep dive into things that will be about students, about safety, about things that are more of requiring a closed meeting. So we will be starting up officially on Tuesday. We'll have a first hour where we'll have a work session that will be kind of that deep dive into the funding aspect now that we know that that bridge funding was not available. And I do appreciate the work that the superintendents are doing to just figure out what's next, how do we move forward, and what's best for our students. And then the second hour will be a public meeting. USDB has volunteered an interpreter, so we will have an interpreter. It is a Zoom meeting, but we'll have an interpreter so that it's open to all public. That was important to our committee members, that if we're going to have a meeting about these families and about these students with these needs, that we needed to make it accessible to them. And then at the end of the PEA memorandum to the EAC, they provided a 4-page document full of questions that they want researched for the next 6 months, and ultimately ending up in a report to Public Education Interim on November 15th, I believe. So that will be our work for the next 6 months, is figuring out how to divide up the categories and working on buildings and funding and long-term funding, and we'll move forward with this challenge.
All right, thank you. Any other items for USDB? I see a light. Member Lear.
And Leanne, remind us, or Vice Chair Wood, please remind us who the committee members are on your USDB committee.
So I am vice chair. Member Booth is I guess I am chair of that committee, and Vice Chair Booth will be vice chair. And then we have Member Brinton helping to represent our southern Utah area, because we have a campus down there. And then we have our finance chair, Member Davis, and then Member Earl.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions?
I just want to say I got to visit the southern 2 campuses, and on Wednesday go with Michelle and visit USDB. I didn't make it over to the blind school yet, but it just warmed my heart to see the needs that they have, how they're bursting at the seams. But the work that they do there is magical. Like watching the children light up when Michelle comes in the room and starts to interact with them was amazing. And I'm so grateful for the work that they do. And I had a nephew that came along, and my sister-in-law. My nephew was born with, I can't remember what it's called, LVA, that's right, LVA. So he went deaf progressively as he was little. He's got cochlears now. You would never know. He has little dreadlocks at 12 that cover his cochlears, and he's this like little pro skater and trick skier. But to listen to him talk, you wouldn't know. And I'm sure that's because of the foundations that were laid there, and then the work they did with the cochlears. And I just am so grateful and excited to do whatever I can to help on this committee.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, team.
Thank you, Superintendent Coleman. Thank you, Vice Chair Hart. For sure.